Hello, everyone. In Tongal land, I'm talking today with Ryan Estabrooks, filmmaker, musician, photographer. He's created lots of content on Tongal, specifically for Nature Made, Lego, and Nickelodeon. And I'm going to let Ryan tell us just a little bit more about himself.
Hey everyone. Yeah, my name is Ryan, and I'm currently based in the Nashville area. And yeah, I have been doing film stuff basically ever since I was in junior high. It's kind of a cliche story, I feel like, with a lot of filmmakers, where they get handed a camcorder by their parents or family members or whatever, and just made a bunch of crazy stuff with my best friends and other kids in the neighborhood. And didn't know it at the time, but that was like filmmaking.
Yeah.
And yeah, suddenly that turned from that into, oh man, we should write these out instead of just coming up with stuff on the fly. And that's kind of how I got into screenwriting, and just kind of took off from there. I've also done music for a long time, and that's, of course, another cliche, is what brought me to Nashville. But it works out. They both really go hand in hand. I've found, for me personally, anyways.
Yeah. And what's the filmmaking scene like in Nashville?
The filmmaking scene, it's probably bigger than people think. Not to say that there's just like a crazy amount of movies and TV getting made necessarily, but there's so many filmmakers because there's a lot of commercial work done here. And also, as you can imagine, there are tons and tons and tons of music videos being shot all over the place. I can't tell you how many times I've driven through somewhere in Nashville and just see people like filming on against the side of some cool looking building or something like that. We're all over the place if you really look out for us.
Can you give our viewers a bit of an overview of your career, what you've done and where you've been?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my first introduction towards this path, in the world of art and media and all that, was through comic books. I got really like hugely big into them. I mean, back when I was in preschool, and for a while I wanted to do that, but at a certain point, I kind of realized that comic books were kind of like movies on the page. I mean, they're essentially storyboards, right?
Yeah.
And so once I put that together, that's kind of what got my wheels turning as far as like, oh, maybe I want to look into this film thing. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, got a camcorder, experimented with that, came out to Nashville, went to an audio engineering school, and towards the end realized that maybe perhaps film was kind of my number one, right after I gotten tons and tons of student loans, which is great. But as soon as I graduated, instead of getting even more in debt to go to film school, I got like a decent paying job, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to go back to school because I can't afford it. So maybe I can take some of the extra money I make and get my own equipment. And that's exactly what I did. Just started making more short films. They were terrible and they took forever because I didn't know what I was doing. My first short took a year and a half from start to finish. And it's like 7 minutes,
Okay.
Nothing crazy. But that was, like, I always say, that was kind of my film school. I was making those shorts. I was diving deep into, like, I mean, film history, like watching movies every day and watching all the behind the scenes stuff about it. So yeah, I had my own little film school that I kind of put myself through haphazardly.
Yeah.
And yeah, at a certain point, I guess things kind of kept getting better and better. Learned from a lot of huge mistakes that I made. And yeah, at a certain point was able to save up money and quit my day job and just made a go of it. And now I am at I work at a film company called Little Dragon here in Nashville.
And so I'm curious to know, are there any parts of your audio engineering background or your training that gave you like the confidence to give yourself like that DIY self-tutorial filmmaking training? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Because before I went to my audio engineering college, I've been doing music since I was 12,
Hmm.
and we started off with like the most cheap rinky dink little PC microphones and saved up money and basically made our own little home studio. Did we know exactly what to do with it all? No, but we, kind of learned there, and we're able to figure out like, how do you do this, like just bit by bit. And that definitely carried over into my filmmaking. And in my audio background, my music background has helped tremendously, because whenever it finally came time to do scores or sound effects and things like that, I knew how to do that part. I didn't have to hire anyone for that. So, and as you've probably seen, I know you mentioned Nickelodeon. I think it's no coincidence that a lot of my projects thus far have been pretty heavily related to the world of music. So the Nickelodeon web series that I did with you guys was purely just, it was like music videos almost,
Yeah.
essentially. It was this interesting kind of unique combo of music videos telling stories about Nickelodeon shows. And I can easily tell you 100% that would have never have happened if I didn't have that background in music.
Nice. Love to know that. How did you first get started on Tongal, and what were some of your early projects?
Thinking back to Tongal, my first project with you all was, I think, 2014 or 2015, somewhere in that area. I can't remember how I came across you all, but I just thought it was like a really cool idea of, oh man, these are projects with huge companies, that's kind of crowdsourced or available to anyone. And in the beginning, I kind of got my feet wet, just trying to submit like concepts, just, commercial concepts and things like that, just all written stuff. But then at a certain point, I tried my hand at, okay, what if I actually make some videos? Because at the time, you all had a lot of wild card opportunities, which anybody could submit to that. Like, you didn't have to win the pitch or anything like that. And yeah, the first project that I got picked up through Tongal was a wild card submission that I sent to the Dallas Cowboys, and it was like a short documentary on one of their fans based here in the Nashville area.
Nice. That's super cool.
And so after that, it was like, okay, man, this is amazing. So, and I've been collaborating with you guys ever since.
Yeah, no, similarly, I can like attest to the fact that like sometimes you can't remember how you find out about Tongal. It kind of just finds you. It's really
Yeah, yeah,
um,
right.
so how did you imagine your artistic career unfolding? I guess like in your early years.
I feel like most people in the arts have this grand plan or grand idea of how things are going to unfold.
Hmm.
And I feel like it never happens that way. So, and then part of it's like, you're young, you're naive, you don't know any better, and life has a way of humbling you, to put it lightly. So yeah, I don't know. I think growing up, I had a lot of misconceptions about the industry and what success meant, and like, I just thought it was just movies and TV. I never even thought of like, oh, I bet there's filmmakers who make these commercials. I didn't even think about who does make all these other forms of video content.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I thought it was just going to be movies. But yeah, and then I got older and then found out like, oh, these are actually like jobs that you can make other types of video stuff for. There's a lot of skills that I've had to pick up kind of by necessity, just because when you're starting out, you don't know a lot of people necessarily. And things like, let's say, learning how to edit, learning how to do motion graphics, all, even maybe a little bit of like Photoshop, graphic design, stuff like that. You kind of have to get your hands dirty in all aspects of that. That is something I definitely could not have predicted back then, but I'm glad that I've gone through that, because it's led to a lot of opportunities. And it overall, I think the more types of art you do, the more sides that you get to experiment with, I
Hmm.
feel like just the better artist that you are. I think I've grown as a filmmaker because I'm able to kind of, I guess, speak the language of many other aspects of filmmaking.
Can you talk to us about any uh, missteps or rare opportunities that have been enriching learning moments for you? So any opportunity or any moment in your life where you felt like, you know, I I thought this would go one way and it didn't, but actually it ended up being all right. Working out for the
Yeah.
times.
One of the first things that comes to mind is the very first time I was able to get professional feedback from somebody.
Mhm.
That was a huge game changer to me, and it was both good and bad. The bad part of it was like I had written quite a few screenplays, but I wrote one that I finally was like, okay, this is a movie that I think could totally get made, and I was able to find some great like professional readers who could give me really good in-depth feedback, like people in the industry. It's the first time I ever had that happen, and the feedback I got was not great. Um, they were just like the problems they have with the scripts were basically core fundamental story things where if I would have fixed them, I would have had no movie. So basically, the whole movie was just a no-go and not nearly as good as I thought it was, which, that happens whenever you're starting out. But it was so good because I started hearing the things that I needed to hear, not that I just wanted to hear. And that feedback, I mean, it allowed me to level up so quickly. And it was one of those things where, man, I wish I had been doing that from the get-go for the other like 5 screenplays I'd written before then. So yeah, getting professional feedback and even now the feedback part of the process is definitely one of my favorites because it's where you're getting that first like exposure to an audience, so you can start to see like, okay, how are people going to receive this and how can I make this better? Because I want to know how to make it better right now instead of later when it's too late, like when it's gone and out and people are like, hey, this is not working, like there's nothing I can do about it, but
Yeah.
now you can. So yeah, that was a game changer for me. Definitely helped me level up really, really fast. But the other thing is when I was talking about picking up other skills and having to learn how to do things, I had to learn how to do After Effects and motion graphics and that sort of stuff. And that is a big part of what led to me being able to join my current film company now.
Mhm.
Is because I had the skill that frankly nobody else really internally at the company had at the time. And it was something that I never really saw myself doing. I never wanted to be a motion graphics artist. I didn't even know that was a thing whenever I was younger, but thankfully I did. And I just and it was on projects that I just kind of picked up on the side that I didn't think would go anywhere. And so that's kind of something for me too, where I found a lot of times all these little opportunities, all these little things, in the moment, sometimes it may not feel like it's leading to anywhere, but later on it does in its own kind of strange, weird way that tends to happen in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is there any valuable? I'm sure it's going to be valuable because it's coming from you. But are there any kind of like large nuggets, golden nuggets of knowledge you can impart on anyone who is maybe a little, shy about the feedback process and someone who might feel like
Mm.
working independently is best and doesn't like other people perhaps touching their ideas?
Every artist I feel like has certain projects that feel so personal
Yeah.
that it's hard not to take feedback personally. And I think that can be a challenge. Like for me, I'm able to put up a little bit of that distance. I'm not overly precious with my material, and that allows me to be a little bit more ruthless, like in the editing process, to just throw out stuff that's not working. But it's hard to do that, and especially if you feel like, oh man, I've spent months on this, and now you're telling me it's no good. One thing to that I try to keep in mind is that most people giving you feedback do genuinely want to help and do genuinely want this to be better. And I think that helps because It's not assuming that, oh, they're just there trying to like tear me down. And maybe there is somebody who's like jealous and are just trying to hurt you, but I feel like that's pretty rare. And you'll probably know right away, like, oh, I can tell what this is. But most people, when they take the time out of their day, which we all don't have a lot of, right? That typically means that they want to be honest and they want to help you make this thing better. And yeah, like I said earlier, if somebody's having these reactions to your work, there's a possibility that lots of other people in the audience are going to feel the same way as well. So would you rather know now, or like whenever you can change stuff, or would you rather know whenever it's too late and it's out of your hands and there's nothing that you can do about it? Yeah, for me, I'd rather know now. And it's almost like a bit of a muscle, I guess, where you the more you do it, I think the easier it tends to get.
One of the things that you kept mentioning was honesty, and I think that that's kind of like at the root of it. Someone wants you to be great, they will be honest with you. So appreciative of that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the show that you're currently working on and how it gets made?
So I am currently one of the lead writers, producers, and directors of a TV series on PBS called Reconnecting Roots. The concept of the series is that each episode we take a look at a topic that relates to American progress, and kind of the history of the past, the present, and future about a given topic. And we look at it through like sketches, character pieces, and then also a little bit of kind of documentary, like short documentary segments where we go out and interview people in these fields and kind of see it up close and personal. We are currently in post-production on season 3 right now. So the first 2 seasons have been airing on PBS and should be available on the PBS app to stream for free. So what it's like making this show is, we start off doing a ton of research, since it's, we're looking at a lot of history, got to get it right. So I have a huge research process on just like dozens of topics that we think are kind of interesting. And then based on that research, we whittle it down to, okay, here's, like a big group of them that we think have some value or could be worth exploring. And then from there, we whittle that down to, okay, here's, the 8 episodes of the season that we are going to tackle and some of the things that we're going to look at. And yeah, from there, we, have our team of staff writers, and the whole team will come together and brainstorm a few episodes at a time. We've got the big whiteboard and corkboard and index cards and all sort of stuff. And, just try to figure out, okay, how do we take all of this information, all of these thoughts, these ideas, and turn them into a story each episode. And once we kind of have the outline figured out, we break off into 2 separate teams, and I lead one of those teams. And we go off and we write the episode, regroup, do a bunch of revisions, and then move on to the next episode. And then at a certain point, myself and the other head writer maybe do a couple more drafts just to tie everything together on the episodes. And then we start figuring out, okay, how are we going to shoot this thing? Where are we going to go? What characters do we need? And that sort of stuff. And we film it, and now we're editing it, which is where we're currently at. And, the editing will lead to graphics and animation and sound. And then at a certain point, we deliver it to PBS, and then they put it all over TV screens.
I caught parts of the episode on the Irish immigrant contribution to American history, and as well as like the different American genres of music.
That's my favorite. Kind
of like a narrative for American history, or like just a telling of like where we've been and where we're going. Those episodes are truly amazing, because I'm like a history geek, but or a buff, but I'm like, I could just sit down and watch television about something I have no idea about. Sure, why not? Fills my mind with cool stuff.
That's awesome. We try to make it as entertaining as possible. Like we did not want this to be just a really, by the facts documentary where you just hear a voiceover read a textbook to you. We didn't want that feel at all. We wanted it to feel more relatable, almost more of like we say it's a bit of a mix of like a Bill Nye and This American Life. You know, we try to really have fun with it and not bore you to tears with American history.
I can definitely feel some of the Bill Nye sensibilities in there. So
yeah, we get a little bit silly sometimes.
So what are some of your favorite parts of working on the show, and what are some of the challenges?
I think for me, I'm having the most fun whenever we're filming. When I'm on set directing, it's the day goes by like that. You know, it's like the hours just fly by. So that's probably my favorite part. My least favorite part, man, what is my least favorite part? I enjoy a lot of it. I would say some of the animation is so technical and difficult. I don't always love doing that part. And to be clear, I don't do all the animation, but I do kind of help out here and there. And man, animation is so hard. It's so technical. It's very artistic, but it's super technical. And yeah, sometimes I'm just like, how do I do this? How do I, trying to figure out ways of how do I get this thing to do this or whatever. So I would be completely fine if we had someone else do that 100% of the time.
Over the years, do you find that the way in which you work with other creators has changed, or have processes typically remained the same?
They have wildly changed. And I do think Tongal has been at the forefront of that, which is why I love working with you guys. Yeah, I mean, so much has moved online. There's no doubt about it. Even before the pandemic, it's just been a trend, and it's even more so now. Of course, now that more and more people are used to it, more people know what Zoom is. How many like. I feel like the audience for Zoom was probably like half before the pandemic, right? Now everybody knows what it is and knows how to do it. So yeah, the internet has just truly allowed all of us to collaborate so much more quickly, effectively. I would like to say that trend started with music first. Once it became easy for lots of musicians to like trade files, to email each other stuff.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I think led us down to this path, and our internet speeds caught up to where now we can upload gigs and gigs of like video files and all that stuff. And so, for example, the Nickelodeon project that I did with you, I had a lot of meetings with Nickelodeon executives, but we never met face to face. And that was a particular project where they weren't on set. So I mean, it really was just like lots and lots of communication, figuring out, okay, here's what's going to be done, and then filming it, and I mean, delivering it all online. So 20 years ago, there's no way that would have happened, or at least not to the quality that we can do now. We would have had to, we would have had phone calls with Nickelodeon, but we would have probably had to either bring them in or fly out wherever to meet them and film all together, and shipping hard drives and all that sort of stuff. And now we could just do it online. And we've even done some projects where we've, done the virtual like streaming thing on set, so that other people can have feeds of every camera of every camera filming, and like a camera on set, so they can see the entire set. I mean, we've done that several times, and it's just crazy to think about that. I mean, that was possible 10 years ago, but not at the affordability level that it is now. The accessibility to all these things has absolutely changed.
Yeah. Do you think also too, maybe just the approach that like studios and brands are taking just has changed too? Just like, okay, well, we realize like the pandemic has limited us in lots of ways, and revealed to us too that we can do a lot without being in person. So perhaps we should just be moving forward, like a cultural shift of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. And to be clear, I mean, not everything is built for that or works best that way, but there have been quite a few writers' rooms that I've been made aware of on TV shows that were virtual by necessity, and they made it work. I think a lot of people still prefer to be in a writer's room in person for that, but they were still able to do it. And I've even heard now that like a lot of pitch meetings happening with film studios are happening so much more often on a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever, because it's like, why do we need to drive however long into an office together to just to chat whenever we can just hop on and do it here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like people are finding that it can be more of a time saver. Really, time saver is just more convenient, and I can't help but think that allows them to look outside of their own bubble, even just a little bit, and find others who may not live in LA or New York City or somewhere like that.
Yeah. So tell us, what television shows captured your attention as a kid? What were you into?
When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with Ninja Turtles. So that was one of my earliest memories. I mean,
Nice.
I had like the Halloween costumes, I had the videotapes, I had the action figures. My dog, the first dog I got was named Donatello, which was after the Ninja Turtle, not
Not
the
Dogatello.
artist. Yeah. So yeah, that was the first one. And then let's see, growing up, I, like a lot of kids, got into anime big time, like started watching Neon Genesis Evangelion, which definitely as a kid some of it went over my head. Dragon Ball Z, come on. Sailor Moon was still is a huge favorite of mine. And yeah, and so then once around 12, I started getting more into music. And so then suddenly I started watching tons and tons of MTV and BET. That was just like almost on like 24/7. I can't tell you how many times I watched TRL just to see what the latest stuff was going on with in the music world.
Yeah.
That was an interesting era of music culture, the whole TRL era,
Love it.
and 106 in Park. Those are things that really stick out to me. I mean, like I would leave the TV on. I don't know if this is healthy or not, but I would leave it on like whenever I go to sleep. Leave it on like a video channel of some sort and fall asleep to like music videos and stuff.
And that's what seems to have brought together your dream for music and filmmaking here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just like seeped more and more and more into my subconscious. It's the best way to do it.
And tell us, what are you watching these days?
These days, I've been watching The Great, the Hulu show. I just finished Miss Marvel, which I loved, completely loved, and still working through the newest season of Stranger Things, which I honestly think has probably been my favorite season of that show so far.
I just caught a few episodes of a show called Loot, which stars Maya Rudolph and MJ Rodriguez on
Yeah, how is that?
Apple TV. It's really funny. It's really funny.
Yeah.
I generally like always haven't laughed at like every Maya Rudolph sketch I've seen, but
Mm-hmm.
this was
This
just,
one's solid.
yeah, this one was good. I couldn't find a way around it. I had to just bust out laugh every time.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Ted Lasso on because that's on Apple TV as well?
No, I haven't caught that yet. I'm one of those
Okay.
folks who's like, I gotta watch the whole thing at once, not episode by
Hmm.
episode. So I need to sit down and get into it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a solid comedy. I think there's only 2 seasons out right now, so it's not like and I want to say they're 30 minutes. I could be wrong. It might be an hour. I can't remember, but yeah, it's not like a ton of episodes. It's really worth your time as well.
Okay, cool. No, I feel like all my friends have seen it, and I'm like the last one who isn't in on the on this piece. So I need to get into it.
Yeah. Well, there's too much TV. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's not too much TV. There is more great TV shows than we have time to feasibly watch these days, which is like, I
Okay,
mean, what a good problem to
you're
have,
right.
right?
Because I felt like growing up, there were maybe like 5 television shows I felt like I had to watch that everyone else was watching, and now I feel like there's so much
Yeah.
content that I'm like, there's no way everyone in your friend group, everyone in your group chat is going to be watching the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Got to get used to that.
Yeah, and like I've had to get used to the idea of like it's okay that I haven't seen this show yet, and maybe will not for a very long time because I just don't have time to watch everything. Because it used to be possible. It used to be like it'd be like, back when these giant hits were on TV, or even just yes, like anime stuff. It was just so easy to like, okay, like me and all my friends were watching it, or whether it was Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z or whatever. It was just like that was it. We'd watch like 2 shows and boom, you're done. And that's it. Now it's like, man, it's all over, not just like cable stations, but like streaming platforms. And it's just it's so all over the place.
At
I
one
love
point
it.
in my life, I just thought I had to know what the latest episode of Family Guy was. And now I'm like, nope, there's just so much more. There's so much more you got to
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, exactly. So much more.
So if there is one piece of advice that you would lend to creators who are just starting out, what might that be?
Yeah, so I think aside from really just trying to get good professional feedback as soon as you can in your creative process, I think the biggest thing in my mind is to just finish what you start,
Mm,
even if you think it's bad, even if it's not working or you have reservations, or even if even if you have some new, even shinier, better looking idea that pops up, and it will, there's always going to be something shinier that's gonna distract you no matter what you're working on. Finish that first thing. The act of being able to have it completely done and being able to not only look at it yourself, but yeah, like throw it out to other people, throw it online, just see what the reactions are. I feel like it's instrumental to the creative process, in not only seeing how every single piece of creating artwork, such as distributing it, putting it out on whatever platforms that you want to do, but it's also a bit of a morale booster. I feel like, if you just keep starting things and move on, it's hard to feel like you're getting stuff done, I feel like. But if you can mark that big thing off your task list, or you can look back on this past year and say, you know what, I did these 3 short scripts or something like that. I mean, you can, like, those are tangible, complete things, whether or not they're Citizen Kane or not, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter, because those experiences I've found just keep building and building and building. And in fact, I would say, if you can, try to put out in the beginning, especially, as much stuff as fast as you can. Like, I almost wouldn't even worry as much about quality in relation to how fast can you get this done, because in any art fields, a lot of the stuff, it's not going to be your greatest work, and that's cool. That's exciting, because that means you're only going to get better. You have these amazing things to look forward to that are going to come down later down the line for you.
mm-hmm.
You kind of have to get through that first period where you don't quite know what you're doing, or you don't quite have, like, you have great ideas, you have great taste in things, and you kind of know what you like, but maybe it doesn't quite fit the way you want. But man, if you just bust that stuff out and just blaze through that first period, you can kind of get to that later, like, amazing, I'm on fire, the peak of my game, sort of, like, you can get to that phase faster, I feel like.
So yeah, Ryan, if you could just tell us before we go, what should we look out for from you?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned earlier, Reconnecting Roots season 3, we are currently in post-production on, and we're finishing that up. It's either going to be coming out this winter or this upcoming spring. I would lean more towards springtime, 2023. So be on the lookout for that. You can watch the other 2 seasons in the meantime if you want to get caught up. I also have a documentary project called Assisted Stories Nashville that I'm working on. We are going to film part of that towards the end of this month or early September. So that will be online at some point after it's finished. And yeah, and then beyond that, I've got some other scripts that I'm always writing, no matter what. So those are a little too early to say what's happening with those now, but hopefully I'll be able to talk more about those later.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today, Ryan. We do appreciate
Sure, thank you.
all of the gems that you've dropped on us today. So just really want to
Thanks.
say thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and have a great one.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.